The books that I looked at were just full of contradictions, and even leading astrologers admit that there is a great deal of contradiction in astrology. But I do want to go back to one point that you had mentioned earlier, Terry, that I did not take your course, and I did. It was given July 6th at 3 o'clock. It was the archetype of planets, and you began by stating the real basis of astrology. The real basis of astrology is the planets. And Maxine, I did take your course as well on July 6th, 1:15 p.m. to 3 o'clock. It was called Can I Rise Above My Chart? And in that course you stated, quote, I have many experiences in the spirit world, and I think channeling is very important, end quote. Quote again, channeling is wonderful if you have a guide that you can trust and is spiritual.
That's correct. May I explain?
And you also stated, quote, you are God, unquote, speaking to the audience, and who we are is God in an earthbound body. Now, number one, that's not Christian theology. That's pantheism. Okay, and number two, spirit guides fit the characteristics of demons, whether you're looking at it from a historical perspective or from the perspective of biblical demonology. You can go into any ancient culture or modern culture you want. They all believe in the reality of evil spirits. You look at the characteristics of those spirits, you look at the characteristics of modern spirit guides that you find in channeling, and they are one and the same.
May I respond to that?
Certainly, go ahead.
First of all, what I said you've lifted out of context, but since you have said it, I do want to respond to it. Many of my colleagues do use spirit guides. You asked me if I use them. No, I do not. I think channeling is wonderful if you have a wonderful spirit guide, and the truth is there are wonderful spirit guides. I said that because many of my colleagues do use them. Many of my colleagues use many things that I don't. That does not mean that astrology is wrong or that they are wrong.
Well, it was earlier stated that astrology is not something occultic. Let me read you a few statements from astrologers on the nature of astrology itself in this regard. Sepharel, who was Walter Old, he was a Kabbalist and a Theosophist, he says this, quote, the astrologic art is held to be the key to all the occult sciences. Sybil Leek, the famous witch, in her book, My Life in Astrology, says, quote, astrology is my science, witchcraft is my religion. Doreen Valiente, in her book, An ABC of Witchcraft, Past and Present, she's a practicing witch, says, quote, astrology is another of the fundamentals of magic. It is studied by witch and magician alike, end quote. Theosophist and humanistic astrologer Dane Rudyard states, quote, the astrologer has authority as one who deals understandingly and effectively with the occult, unquote. And he says, quote, astrology is occult knowledge, unquote. Henry Weingarten, a leading astrologer, director of the National Astrological Society in New York, says that, quote, almost all occultists use astrological timing in their work, end quote.
Okay, hold on, John. First of all, it's not unusual, Karen, because you also picked up in your professional astrological counsel, you also picked up a spirit guide. Why is it so easy in astrology when you get into it, because that you didn't go looking for one, but you also picked one up yourself. How did that happen, and what are we talking about here? Because I understand that this might be new to the audience, but it is not new, especially in your story.
Okay, I didn't go looking for one in those words and those terms, but I went looking for the meaning and what makes astrology work. And whether they were people, and there were some good old-fashioned occultists, astrologers, probably the most candid of the astrologers I knew, and then there were the New Age types, you know, who were trying to refurbish the image a little bit. But the thing that makes astrology work is an intermediary source of knowledge, an intermediary source of a higher intuition than you could know about the character of the person, about the future of the person. This, you know, when I went after it through meditation. I went after it through putting myself in altered states of consciousness by various methods. There's a whole vast array of technologies by which you can do this. And as I said before, any astrology that is done well is done in an altered state. Otherwise, it's schlock astrology. And I really believe that any astrologer will hold to that. However they alter their consciousness, whether it's through techniques of Eastern Zen meditation or, you know, any kind of Eastern meditation. In my experience, I have tried many things. They all lead to the same road. They all end up in the same eventuality, and that is you need an intermediary source. I would like to just ask Maxine.
All right, we're going to have to hold the question until next week. We're out of time.
Okay.
But get the question on the board, and we'll start with it.
Okay.
What is the question?
The question is, what is a wonderful spirit guide? What characteristics would a wonderful spirit guide
I'd like to know, too, and I think the audience would, and if you'll join us next week, we'll start with that question. We're having a fascinating conversation here concerning astrology and how does it work and why does it work. And we actually have 3 professional astrologers on the platform, and one who of those professional astrologers who has left. And I'd like to come to you. You were making some pretty interesting statements last week. You had divided astrologers into basically 3 groups, and you had asked a question. And I'd like you just to refresh the audience's mind. What were those 3 groups and what you said, and then let's pick up the conversation right there. Karen?
Okay, that there are 3 types of astrology, or 3 levels of astrology, in terms of how well it's done or how accurately or dramatic your successes are. The first is, the highest level is psychic, in which you need, if you don't want to talk about spirit guides, in which you need psychic ability. However you want to develop that or phrase that, you need psychic ability. The second is intuitive, where you're just psyching out the person, not necessarily psychically, but just slyly. By talking to them and by using and choosing from among an array of indicators you have in your chart.
We've had professional magicians on here that would talk about that like a cold reading, or psychologists that would be just good at reading people.
Right.
It's not actually using the astrology, but you're using other abilities.
You're using it. You're priming the pump, and you're using that to talk from. And the other is bad astrology, or schlock astrology, which is just you get your, what Mars in the 2nd house in Capricorn, trine Venus in the whatever house and whatever sign, what all those mean, and you just look in the cookbook for the definition, you put that out, and you got this list of definitions, lots of which are contradictory, and you try to integrate those. So those are the 3 levels.
And what you felt guilty about is that when you were starting to give information, you started to say, well, how sure am I about this information?
I felt that I did not have a reliable source. I felt that I didn't know how. Again, I was trying to figure out how this darn thing works. How could I get this, these insights, these psychic insights, to be reliable? Which then you picked up.
Then you picked up another source of power. Tell us about that.
Well, in this search, to find this out, and again, in talking to other astrologers, and finding out that they had spirit guides, and this was not, I would expect at this time this would be kind of common knowledge. It's trendy, Shirley MacLaine and all, so, maybe we tell our clients this, I don't know. We never did. Was, as I say, common knowledge among ourselves that we had these sources. There are ways to tap into these powers, and everybody had a lot of different ways, a lot of different traditions, they were involved, and I knew some Kabbalists. I knew my mentor in astrology and my teacher was a priestess in an Egyptian religion. This was something that you found out as you sort of moved along. Most accomplished astrologer in the area. And there were other instances of other things people were involved in that led me to believe this is the way to go. Well, I tried putting myself in these altered states. The one that finally connected is the pretty down-home method. Teenagers use it all the time. It's the old Ouija board. I chose the Ouija board because I wanted something that would be objective, in the sense that